Yes, so hi everybody and welcome to this Ekkono Open Fika. Today we're going to talk about how to start up a project, what to think of in the beginning that gives great value in the end, and how to select the correct use case. My name is Robert Zimmerman. I work with product marketing here at Ekkono, and I have a special interest in processes, both internal and external. So that's why I like this topic of Open Fika. And we are two talkers today. I have Joakim Andersson as well.
Hi everyone. As Robert said, Joakim Andersson. I'm VP of Solutions Architecture at Ekkono. Our team works with basically all the customer projects that we're involved in. And I'm glad you all could join for this Open Fika. And for those of you who haven't participated before in our Open Fikas, these are the rules of engagement. If you have any practical questions, just use the chat function. And if you have any questions that you think of during the presentation and so on, just use the Q&A function and we'll pick those up at the end of the Open Fika session. So, all right, so.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of you have great interest in machine learning and how to apply that on your products to make process improvements or help out with quality issues. And Joakim and I will share some thoughts and ideas how to start up a machine learning project to support those issues. I will contribute with most processes and Joakim will contribute with experiences from running machine learning projects.
Yeah, so many companies, they have a good idea and vision of where they want to take their projects, obviously, but how to improve them, make them more intuitive or more sustainable. But you got to start somewhere and you need to get the basics right to be successful on your journey to enhance your product portfolio with machine learning capabilities. So.
Yeah, and one good place to start with is to see the complexity of the different use cases. And to help out there, we have created a Use Case Stair. It describes 4 different levels of complexity, starting off with current state, and that's the normal state, that's where we are right now. But when you look into the future, you get in predictive, and then you go to the second level. And when you use those predictions to take recommended actions, you get prescriptive, and the highest level is cognitive and fully autonomous. And all the steps benefit from the step from beneath. So it all starts out with the current state. And that's also our recommendation to start off there. Many start off with looking at the full autonomous, but it's better to start off with the current state. It all builds up on that. And the good use cases there are health monitoring and virtual sensor.
Yeah, exactly. We have many customers that have started a machine learning journey with us where the idea started in one end, but the initial project turned out to be something completely different. I mean, that idea might have started off by the idea to calculate remaining useful life or something like that. But quite soon you learn that in order to get there, you actually need to model the current state accurately to be able to build on top of that. And so we have developed a simple matrix that makes this initial project selection much easier.
Yes, and we call it the scenario matrix. So if you click on that, Joakim,
absolutely,
we can see it in the picture. It's
there we go. Sorry.
Yeah. So the scenario matrix, it helps you to find the correct use cases with the most potential being a successful machine learning project. So it starts out with a description of the scenario, and then we have 4 different areas that we give a scoring. So we have a machine learning applicability, business value created, feasibility, and sustainability. And the sustainability area is very focused from many customers. So you combine all those scorings to a total score, and that gives a great guidance in selecting the right scenario. So I know you have been through many of these workshops with the scenario matrix. So can you give any advice from those, Joakim?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the key thing is to get the team right, meaning the people that are knowledgeable with your product or product for that matter, on various levels. You know, on the platform itself, the software stack that runs there, and those capabilities of running something like edge machine learning. You also need the experienced engineer that you trust, that that typical guy that you send into the field when you need to analyze or solve the trickiest problems that arise. But that's the technical aspect of it. But equally important is the product owners, the service managers, and sales experts that you think is necessary to add to this team to help quantify the business value. And another important aspect of this is that you make sure that everyone that needs to be involved to make this project a success down the line feels that they have ownership of it and responsibility, because they were a part of the process already from the beginning. They were there when you selected which use case to start with and things like that. Super important, so this doesn't become yet another we need to do more in AI type of project with no clear vision or path on how to get there. This is basically built ground up with a team that will benefit from it, right? And all the ideas are on the table, and it's clear why that use case is selected over another, and so on. And then secondly, come prepared to that workshop, because that workshop doesn't need to be a very long workshop, but if you and the participants of that come prepared with the different use cases that you've thought about, so that you can actually test out those and see if those hold water, or and the other supporting materials as well that we provide when we do these kinds of workshops. So. Yeah,
sounds great. And I also know that in some cases you end up with a number of valuable use cases, and the advice there is to pick one, go the whole way with that one, and then start all over with all the learnings that you had. Yeah, so when moving over to the project life cycle, we have talked about the ID scenario step. And when you have found your use case that want you continue to work with, then then it's time to really nail down the business success criteria, and that you will use during the whole project life cycle. So typically, when you have the idea scenario prioritized, that you have selected the one, you move over to the proof of concept step. And there typically you use historical data, and you use that step to prove the feasibility and practical potential of the use case. So when approved in the POC, you get confidence enough to go to the next step, which is the prototype, where we add hardware and integration to other systems and start collecting data and running the models to implement the whole solution, you can say. And when feeling confident in that, you move over to the pilot stage, typically used in a production or production-like environment, use some production hardware. And that the primary goal with the pilot is to verify the value created. And then when you have that, you can move over to the production state. And the taking here is, we really recommend to use the POC stage. So with a quite limited amount of resources, you can get a large confidence getting to the prototype stage. Do you have any thoughts there, Joakim?
Yeah, I think dividing it's super important. Making sure you scope this project iteratively. The key is sort of making sure that it doesn't become this complex, never-ending, or rather never successful project. And you sort of make it super clear what the objectives are on each step of that journey. Not only just so that is clear, but also there's a real possibility that the excitement takes over and sort of the scope increases because you sort of found these interesting or cool findings that you get bogged down into. Save those for later and make sure that you stay focused on going through the POC stage there.
Yeah, and another recommendation is to use approved process model for your projects. And we have selected CRISP-DM to work with. It stands for Cross-Industry Processing for Data Mining. And it has been around for a while, and it's mostly focused on the development with cloud solutions. But we have done some refinement for edge computing. And it consists of two different processes, development process and the production process. And the green one, the development process, is mostly focused on the POC and prototype steps in the projects. And the blue one, the production one, is the pilot and production stage. And the blue phase is also the quality assurance and application integration. Those two steps are the one refinement we have done with the CRISP. So that makes it more applicable for edge machine learning. Yeah, do you have any thoughts there as well, Joakim?
Yeah, as soon as I fix my throat, I will get there.
Yeah.
All right. So when we refine this process for edge machine learning, we modify the steps, along the way of this process of where we need to add steps that are needed when developing edge machine learning projects. Excuse me. And one of those comes early in the business understanding part, where it's important to put together a solution design. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but the key constraints needs to be there. So all those ideas identified can be picked up and reviewed all along this process to make sure your machine learning, models and things like that solve the problem within those constraints. I think that's in this process we've added these little checkpoints along the way as well. So.
Yeah, correct. Leaving CRISP-DM. Before rounding up, I think I want to show a slide from Microsoft IoT report. And I want to point out number 2 and 3 here. The pilot demonstrates unclear business value and hard to justify business case. I think that those two really point out the importance of having the business value criteria really clear from the very beginning and use it during the whole journey. Of course, it could be modified when you have learnings from POC and prototype, but it's always necessary to check from each step that you are in line with the business value. Do you have any other takes from that report?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, this is a report on different IoT projects, how they fail in the POC phase and so on. And I think that if you look at the top item there, the high cost of scaling, I think that's another driver for why you might look at using edge machine learning to solve the problems rather than like moving lots of data to the cloud. It might not be just sustainable solution, definitely not cost-wise perhaps for your problem. I mean, it depends on the use case obviously, but it's one of those aspects where edge machine learning can really help out as well.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Should we sum up, I guess?
Yeah.
Now that my throat is working again after getting stuck there for a while. So if we look at it from this way, it's, you know, some of the key takeaways. Start, you know, on your stairs journey, start with the current state. You don't want to overcomplicate, specifically not if this is your first machine learning project that you're doing. You know, keep it simple in the beginning, because chances are that those learnings that you do, you need to build on those either way to reach the long-term goals that you might have in you know, improving your products. And now use that scenario matrix that we talked about to identify and select your use cases that has, you know, high project success potential, for instance. So I think those are my two, at least. So
yeah, and one that I think of is to start off with a proof of concept. You can get really far there with a limited amount of resources before starting the real big project. So I think that's important, and also, of course, work in a structured way to get an effective way of working and deliver high quality in the project. You should use a proved process, and that also helps you to focus on the delivery of the value, the business value. Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to the end. Do we have? Should we check for potential questions?
Yeah.
Let's do that. So let's start with the first one here. So what's the typical time frame for a machine learning project? I mean, it's a really good question, and it really depends. But I would say that in our experience of all the projects that we've been working on, it's 2 to 4 months, I would say, for the POC phase is a typical. That's my experience, at least, and I think if you don't have any data at all, that obviously will increase because there will be a data collection portion of it that extends it, but the amount of work and things like that. So 2 to 4 months typically, I would say. And the typical cost of a first machine learning project. That's a super good question. I think that it really depends on the equipment and the hardware that you need to collect data and things like that. If you have lots of historical data and things like that, just to get into the POC phase, right? That doesn't need to be costly, but the cost of the entire project, it's highly dependent on which product we're talking about and so on.
And I think it's also depending on what kind of resources you have in-house and how much
that too.
you go out and buy in competence.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, if there's a specific question around that you know, I mean, I definitely the different when you look into the details, you can get a pretty good estimate of what that cost would be, I would say. So let's see, do we have more questions? We have, it's a good one as well. How advanced coding knowledge do you need in-house to get going with edge machine learning? I would say that it's important to have the coding aspect as a part of your project. Doesn't necessarily need to be a big portion in the POC phase. If you wanna, when you sort of tackle the sort of the machine learning aspects of the problem, when you dive into the data, when you try and solve the problems and so on. But definitely to get edge machine learning going in your project, ultimately it's software that needs to be written, right? Ultimately it's something that needs to get integrated into your product. So either you have those resources in-house or you work with a partner. We have a, you know, wide range of partners that we work with that are excellent solution partners that that are familiar with this process that we're talking about and familiar with our software toolkit to make those things happen. So coding needs to be a part of it to be able to enhance your product for sure.
Yeah.
I think that was all the questions that I have. So I think that sort of wraps up this open fika for today. Anything else you want to add, Robert?
No. Just finishing up with it's just to jump up and surf the machine learning waves to
exactly.
Add smartness to your products.
I knew there was a reason why we put the picture in at the end. I thought it was important to get going with the project, but also important to finish, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of those two aspects.
Yeah, absolutely.